All right, guys, we should be live right now. Hopefully, everything is running smoothly with the stream here. We certainly have a lot to talk about and discuss today. A lot of very interesting conversation to be had once again, because it seems that the constant influx of, I guess you could say, bad PlayStation 5 news continues. However, there's some very interesting aspects to what we're going to be talking about today that might not actually be that negative. And I know that I already know people are going to jump on me because they're going to assume that I'm going to come to Sony's defense. This is, PlayStation Defense Force. No, I have a lot to say when it comes to this new report. And first and foremost, I do want to let everybody know that this is not officially confirmed. This is not a report coming from Sony themselves. This is not an update. This is coming from Jason Schreier, but I 100% believe this and what's being said. But just because I do doesn't mean that you have to. But Jason Schreier is really good with this type of stuff, whether you like him or not, whether you agree with his opinions or not. He usually does pretty good work, and he tries to bring forth some accurate information. I think there at times can be some bias, but I mean, you're going to get that everywhere. iSiler18, you're saying the emergency MBG stream. Yeah. Yeah, just trying to capitalize on it here, But there's definitely a lot to go over here today. So we're going to go over this article. This report is claiming that Sony apparently, they rejected Days Gone 2. Okay, now that is obviously terrible, and I am extremely frustrated with that actually potentially being a real thing that happened. And I do think it's real because there's some evidence that points to this. So that really, really bothers me. But the general idea of this report is that basically Sony is fixating so much on big AAA massive hit titles that if they are not mega hit games, I mean like mega hit games, like 10 plus million sellers or just on track to hit 10 plus million, they're essentially not going to support those types of games or those studios. I don't know that that is something that we should jump to, but anyway, we're gonna go over the information and I'll talk more about it. Red, you're saying Platinum Days Gone twice. A sequel needs to happen because that game is my game of the year 2019. We need to voice this on social media. Not impressed at all. So really quick, we're going to get to the Days Gone part. I do want to say up front here, something that people are completely glossing over. Even I looked it over because nobody's reporting on it, at least not that I've seen. I'm not going to lie. If you follow me on Twitter, I'm extremely reactionary, and I will admit I need to do better. I need to make sure I'm reading the entirety of something before I react to it on Twitter. That's why I make sure to try to have as much info as I can before I go live here on YouTube. But I got to tell you, something that people are glossing over is that Sony Bend is apparently not working on Days Gone 2 because it was rejected, but they are now being given the opportunity to make another new IP and create a brand new franchise. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. Like, I love Days Gone. I want to see Days Gone 2. It deserves a sequel, but I can't sit here and shake my fist that hard at Sony when they're also saying, but we're going to let them make another new IP. It's like, oh, that's actually kind of cool. Like, people are not talking about that part. So we're going to talk about that here. Again, that's not me trying to defend them. That's just me trying to point out, like, it's not all bad. Like, it's not all bad. It's easy to perceive it as all bad. And I'll admit, I'm falling, victim to doing this as well. I'm kind of falling for it, I guess you could say, but it's not all great either. So, Sir Speaks a Lot, you're saying, oh, here we go. Here we go with Sir Speaks a Lot. Sir Speaks a Lot, you say, if this would work, my child said his first word today, and I'm so excited. It's one of those things where it happens once and never happens. Psych, give me the feet pics, fool. Of course, Sir Speaks a Lot. I appreciate the support, though, man. Brett Williams, you're saying, I've been loving the sudden live streams, and for the record, I'm excited for a Last of Us remake. It needs new polish to better match the look and feel of The Last of Us 2. Yeah, we're going to talk about that as well, because I certainly have some thoughts on that. And then we have the Caped Crusader saying Sony is effing up if this is true. Plus, why are they making a Last of Us remake for PS5? I don't get it. Yeah, again, there's a lot of weird stuff going on here that, I mean, it comes off as weird, but anyway, we got a lot of reading to do. So, and I want to make sure to read the entirety of it because I want everybody to understand that we're going to go over all of the information so we know what's being said. Again, really quick before we get into it, this is not officially confirmed, but it is coming from an extremely reliable and reputable source within the industry, that being Jason Schreier. So the article starts by saying Sony's Visual Arts Service Group has long been the unsung hero of many hit PlayStation video games. The San Diego-based operation helps finish off games designed at other Sony-owned studios with animation, art, or other content and development. But about 3 years ago, a handful of influential figures within the Visual Arts Service Group decided they wanted to have more creative control and lead game direction rather than being supporting actors on popular titles such as Spider-Man and Uncharted. We're going to continue here. I'm going to read these two super chats. I do want to let you guys know I love the super chats. Please, by all means, keep them coming. But keep in mind, I might not be able to read them until we're done going over this. Or you can save them maybe for when we get into the more, I'm now going to react and give my opinion on everything we just read. But we have James, you're saying what's going on. Kojima, Days Gone, Japan Studios, back compat, Xbox isn't necessarily winning. Sony might just be losing. Interesting. Kendall Fire is saying this news makes perfect sense paired with yesterday's news. Kojima's weird games don't make sense for 2021 Sony. Yeah, we'll talk about that as well. So again, I appreciate the super chats. Again, please keep them coming, but I'm going to get to them hopefully after. One more here. The Wonderful Gaming Co. You're saying, hey man, back after a while. Still love your content. Finally got my PS5 sorted. Happy to hear that. Went through 4 faulty consoles. Jeez, that's terrible, man. Really hope this report is false. And then we have Junior Jackson with a 25 donation. I obviously will just read that now. Wanted to say sorry for being MIA for a while. Hope the little guy and wife are doing great. Hope to have more time in the near future to be more involved with the channel. Thank you so much, Junior Jackson. I always appreciate your support, man. I know you've been a loyal supporter and follower of the channel, and they're doing great. We're doing great, man. Appreciate you asking. Appreciate your support. And any time you can make for my channel is more than enough for me. So let's keep it going here, because I don't want to. We have a lot to wade through. So let's continue on here. Michael Mumbauer, who took over direction of the Visual Arts Service Group in 2007, recruited a group of about 30 developers internally and from neighboring game studios to form a new development unit within Sony. The idea was to expand upon some of the company's most successful franchises, and the team began working on a remake of the 2013 hit The Last of Us for PlayStation 5, but Sony never fully acknowledged the team's existence or gave them the funding and support needed to succeed in the highly competitive video game market, according to people involved. The studio never even got its own name. Instead, Sony moved ownership of The Last of Us remake to its original creator, Naughty Dog, a Sony-owned studio behind many of the company's best-selling games, and an HBO television series in development. So really quick, just to react to this is kind of crazy to me because we talked a lot in the past about this secret San Diego studio that Sony would not officially acknowledge. I assumed it was because they were going to officially announce. Guys, I see you guys in the chat. Everybody's saying nothing's confirmed. It's all rumors. I already said that multiple times in the beginning. Maybe you missed that, but yes, this is all under the pretense of these are rumors. We don't know if they're true. But again, Jason Schreier is a very reliable source here. So come on, you got to give the guy a little bit of credit. He does his due diligence. So, not saying it means it's confirmed, but, this isn't just a random write-up from some random person on the internet. That's what I'm trying to say. Renato, you're saying, I like you, MBG, yet I feel like you're letting these news cycles influence your opinion. Days Gone, getting a sequel pitch denied, doesn't equal it never getting one. Well, I mean, if you follow me on Twitter, yeah, maybe I'm a little bit too reactionary, but I think you might be surprised at some of the things I'm going to say in this video. But anyway, this studio, this visual arts studio, San Diego, I was under the impression, as were pretty much everybody else, that they were making a new Uncharted. Turns out they were making a remake for The Last of Us, which is really bizarre to me. Like, I kind of get it. I kind of don't get it. A part of me feels like that's actually kind of awesome because the idea that I could play a PS5 version of The Last of Us that's completely remade and just blows me away visually, and get to play as Joel again, which is one of my favorite game characters of all time, and just kind of have that experience over again. I mean, I feel like I kind of got that though with the PS4 remake, but I think it really depends on what exactly are they going to show with a remake, right? Like how different is it going to be from, say, The Last of Us Remastered? I feel like the only way a PS5 remake of The Last of Us makes any kind of sense is if it's really doing some things differently, like it's making some significant changes that maybe we didn't even know we wanted or whatever. I mean, you do look at the improvements that were made with The Last of Us 2, and you could say maybe seeing that applied to The Last of Us 1, but I got to say, this is something that, if it's true, it really does surprise me. I would have never thought in a million years that Sony was planning to remake The Last of Us at least this soon. It's just kind of crazy to me. We haven't even heard about a PS5 version of The Last of Us 2. But again, I loved playing as Joel, and I miss Joel as a character. I wish he had more time in The Last of Us 2. So I can't say that I would be totally against this idea. It's just I understand that a lot of people don't like this idea. I understand a lot of people look at it as like a waste of time and resources. But anyway, it goes on to say here, Deflated, the group's leadership has largely disbanded, according to interviews with 8 people familiar with the operation. Many, including Mumbauer, have left the company entirely. Mumbauer declined to comment, and others asked not to be named, discussing private information. A representative for Sony declined to comment or provide interviews. Obviously, Sony's not going to touch this with a 100-foot pole. So let's move on here. The team's failure highlights the complex hierarchy of video game development, and in particular, Sony's conservative approach to making games for the PlayStation 5. The Japanese conglomerate owns about a dozen studios across the world as part of its PlayStation Studios label, but in recent years, it has prioritized games made by its most successful developers. Studios such as Santa Monica, California-based Naughty Dog, and Amsterdam-based Guerrilla Games spend tens of millions of dollars to make games with the expectation that the investments will pay off exponentially, and they usually do. Hits including 2018's God of War and 2020's The Last of Us Part 2 are exclusive to PlayStation consoles, helping Sony sell some 114 million of the PS4. Rival Microsoft has taken the opposite approach, relying on a wide array of studios to feed its Netflix-like subscription service, Xbox Game Pass, which allows users to pay a monthly fee for limited access to a variety of games. So just to touch on this for a moment, it's weird, in my opinion, the way I will admit, like I've kind of been letting this get to me a little bit, but when I take time to really think about it, it's weird to kind of word this in such a way where it's like it's bad that Sony's doing this. Don't get me wrong, everything has its pros and cons, okay? Sony's approach is not perfect, nor is Microsoft's, nor is Nintendo's. There's no such thing as the perfect approach. Everything has its pros and cons. But for me personally, I just have a struggle believing that Sony wanting to double down on AAA and make them even bigger and even better is a bad thing. However, I do find it confusing that if they're going to do something like that and then in the same breath say, but we're not greenlighting Days Gone 2, which was a very successful game that has the potential to be even bigger and even better, that's where it gets a little confusing. But still, he's highlighting here the good things that Sony's doing with their games and how it's leading to consoles being sold. I mean, guys, let's not lose the forest for the trees here, all right? Sony's doing just fine. You don't have to feel good about that. I'm not saying you do, but Sony is selling PS5s, they're selling games, and that's just the way it is. I don't think something like I don't think this report is going to stop people who are currently trying to buy a PS5 from doing so. Maybe a very, very micro percentage of people, but come on, like realistically speaking, we have to pay attention to the fact that Sony's been doing pretty good. Josh, you're saying that game with the DualSense features, though? Yeah, that's true. That's true. That would be very cool. All right, let's keep it going here. So Sony's focus on exclusive blockbusters has come at the expense of niche teams and studios within the PlayStation organization, leading to high turnover and less choice for players. Last week, Sony reorganized a development office in Japan, resulting in mass departures of people who worked on less well-known but acclaimed games such as Gravity Rush and Everybody's Golf. The company has informed developers that it no longer wants to produce smaller games and that produce smaller games that are only successful in Japan. So this was something that was already reported on. We already know about this. To me, this was a clear sign. Yeah, Sony is not trying to make games that are just like appealing to a certain demographic of people, or they're only successful in these certain areas. Sony wants to go all out. They want global success. Again, there are pros and cons to this. We are obviously seeing the con that, well, Sony doesn't see the need to keep a studio like Japan really at the top or at the forefront. They're reducing them. Yeah, that sucks, but why are they doing that? And when you realize, well, it's because they want to focus on I mean, it is a little weird. I'm not going to lie to you. It is the thing that really rubs me the wrong way here is Sony, you're going to greenlight a Last of Us remake, for God's sakes, after you just remastered the game in 2013 and 14. But you're going to greenlight that, but you're not going to continue to support Japan Studio. I know Japan Studio doesn't create the massive hits that you want, but come on. It's part of PlayStation's culture. You got to keep that alive, you know? I don't know. I mean, it's just, this is where you see the disconnect between the business side of things versus the consumer. I mean, yeah, these games didn't really sell that great, but let me see here. Marcus Moore. I said I wasn't going to read super chats, but you guys are flowing them in, and I feel bad. I don't want to ignore them. Marcus, you're saying, why are Xbox fanboys so desperate to try and destroy PlayStation? PS5 is literally selling like crazy. I'm not even acknowledging the PlayStation or the Xbox fanboys at this point, because what I've realized is that they will do anything that they can to make PlayStation sound bad. There are probably Xbox fanboys right now being like, oh my God, Days Gone was amazing. Such a shame to see that it's not going to get a sequel. When in reality, these are probably the same people that were bashing it to no end. Same with Death Stranding and Kojima. You know, oh, Kojima's overrated. Kojima, you know, he's washed up. We don't need him. But now that they hear, oh, he might be going to Xbox, like, oh, Kojima's the best. You know, I mean, come on. Like, it's ridiculous. Keegan, thank you so much, man, for the generous $50 donation. You're saying, look at the bright side, guys. These questionable moves Sony has been making recently, and their silence could mean we see the big heavy hitters like God of War and Horizon in June. Two big AAA games, which Sony is obviously focusing on. And yeah, that's the thing. Again, we don't want to lose the forest for the trees here, guys. And that's exactly what's beginning to happen. You can very clearly see this. This does not mean Sony isn't going to produce great games. This does not mean that we're not going to get great games. I don't mean to sound like I'm damage controlling. I'm just trying to be real, okay? Like, I am angry. I am angry at Sony if this is true, that you're not making a Days Gone. What is wrong with you, Sony? Doesn't mean I'm any less excited for the next God of War or Horizon Forbidden West or Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. That's just the reality. If you're upset, if you're so upset at Sony that you're not excited for these games, I don't know what to tell you. You're within your right to feel that way, obviously. Then don't be excited. But it's not all doom and gloom, regardless of what people want you to believe. I will admit, on Twitter, sometimes I'm way too reactionary and I get pissed off, man. Like when I first read this without reading the entirety of the article, I was like pissed off. I'm like, what do you mean you're not making a Days Gone 2? Like, what do you mean you're not making a Days Gone 2? Like, that was just crazy to me. And then suddenly I see a lot of people saying, oh, who cares? Days Gone was mediocre. It's a generic zombie game. I'm like, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear any of that. Like, everybody's entitled to their opinion, but I love Days Gone. I was an advocate for it. I loved the game. It was amazing, and it deserves a sequel. You know, just as much as I believe The Order 1886 deserved a second chance, so does Days Gone. Although I think Days Gone was significantly better in a lot of ways. The Wonderful Gaming Co. You're saying, I love pretty much all of the exclusives Sony have put out, but I will say that they have fallen into a genre with them. Variety would help, in your opinion. I do agree. I think Sony needs to make sure that, like, again, this is a potential con. If Sony's going to really focus on only the games that are big mega hits, you don't want to fall victim to making the same game over and over again, you know? This is freezing up a little bit. Sorry, guys. The chat's freezing up. I'm trying to make sure I don't lose any of this stuff. I wasn't expecting this much support. I mean, dude, I appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. Jamel, you're saying Japan Studio games will be made by a Asobi team now. Yeah, and let's be honest, guys. They're making, if I had to guess, they're making like a full-blown AAA Astrobot game. That's not bad to me. Like, dude, Astrobot was amazing on the PS5. Astrobot Rescue Mission was apparently amazing in VR. So the idea that they have a full-blown team right now working on a bigger budget Astrobot game, yeah, I mean, that it's not necessarily the only thing you would like to see from Japan Studio or Team Asobi, but hey, it's still something, you know? Again, this is where people need to stop, getting things confused here. Sony did not shutter Japan Studio. They downsized them and basically consolidated them into one big team that's going to work on most likely Astrobot. I mean, yeah, that's effectively, neutering them in some ways, but Brett Williams, you're saying if Xbox wants to be the McDonald's of gaming, PlayStation seems to have decided on being the high-end steakhouse. Smart moves. Yeah, I mean, again, it's the separation of the direction that they're going in. You see that Sony is like, we don't want smaller games. We want the big games. Like you said, like they want to be the high-end steakhouse where you're going to have less variety potentially, but what is on offer, it's all like of the highest quality. If you want more variety, you want more menu options, you might not necessarily get the highest quality across the board, but you will have that quantity at your disposal. People do like that. There are people. I think both can exist. I think a balance between the two can exist, and that's the thing that I think is concerning a lot of people with this, is where it's like Sony up to this point seems to have had a pretty good balance of having big mega hit games. Maybe some smaller ones that aren't as big, but still, they play their role. And now it just seems like Sony just wants to kind of push that away and say, we're just going all big, all day, every day. And that's it. Alentius returns. You're saying, MBG, did you seriously just blame Xbox for Jason writing this article? Seriously, Sony is not responsible for its own decisions. What? I didn't say that, dude. I'm not blaming Xbox for Jason writing this article. No, I was talking about Xbox fanboys. I'm not saying Jason Schreier's an Xbox fanboy. Jason Schreier's just reporting on what he's hearing and investigating. I'm not blaming Xbox. Xbox honestly doesn't have much to do with this at all. Xbox isn't a big part of this conversation. So I'm not really I appreciate the super chat, man. I'm just not sure where you're getting that from. I may have to try to timestamp this potentially because I know I'm just kind of cutting in between the article. Shorty Faye, you're saying, let's squash all this generation as PlayStation AAA big blockbuster games versus Xbox Game Pass. We will see in a couple of years who is still on top. Yeah, I mean, dude, we're going to see. As I said, like, as we go further into these generations, like, I'm going to give you guys a truth bomb right now, okay? This is not a fanboy thing I'm saying. It's just the truth. When Sony starts showing their games and talking about the games they have coming up, and we start seeing trailers, gameplay demos, no one's going to be talking about this. I mean, I might still be in the corner shaking my fist. I want Days Gone 2, damn it. But in general, most people are not going to be talking about this. Most people are going to be excited at what they're looking at. And, there will still be the core fan base that maybe still questions. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that makes up for the mistakes that Sony maybe is making. But we have to understand that there are two sides to every coin here. And like you said, we're going to see how much this really impacts Sony. Once Sony starts letting the games do the talking, as they usually do, something tells me that, reports that we're going over right now, rumors of Kojima going to Xbox, even the store closures and Japan Studio, that stuff's going to take a back seat, rightfully so, because people are like, I want to play these games. These games look incredible. And that's what matters most at the end of the day. Chase the Chosen One, you're saying, I'm not saying this will make the biggest positive change, but Jim Ryan does need to step down. I mean, guys, it's difficult. Like, people are comparing Jim Ryan to Don Matrick, and I'm like, no. Like, this is where things are getting out of hand. Like, if you want to be mad that Sony rejected Days Gone 2, be mad. If you want to be upset at the idea of a Last of Us remake because you think it's completely redundant and stupid, go ahead. If you want to be upset that Japan Studio is not going to be having the type of output that they used to, understandable. But to try to compare Jim Ryan to Don Matrick, did people forget exactly just what Don Matrick did to Xbox? He literally crumbled the brand overnight, to the point where it was almost questionable, is this possible to save and turn around? And Phil Spencer had to take that on. That's not what Jim Ryan's doing. Jim Ryan is effectively doubling down and tripling down on what worked for Sony. It does seem like it is coming at a cost. It's just people are jumping to conclusions assuming that, the cost is going to be too great. The cost is going to be so great that it's going to take Sony down. let's wait and see. Let's let the games come out. We're 5 months into this generation, or like 6 months into this generation, whatever. Let's calm down. Let's see what happens. Okay. People are getting way ahead of themselves. Be upset, but there's no need to jump to these extreme conclusions. Look, there were a lot of people. I'll give you a good example. I'm not saying that the situation PlayStation's in now is anywhere near what we saw with Xbox One, but there were people that when Xbox One first launched, they were convinced they're done. They are done. Put a fork in it. It's done. Look at where Xbox is now. That's not how these things work. Okay. Not that, and I'm not saying PlayStation's in that same situation. Very far from it. But I mean, come on now, people. Severin, you're saying, welcome to the fanboy wars. My box is better than your box. Pathetic. Really, just enjoy your games and ignore the drama, people. I mean, I do agree. There's no need to get dramatic about it. Sometimes if you're passionate about something, I'm guilty of this constantly. You express yourself. But I do agree, like, we kind of have to just not let this get out of hand for either side. I mean, if Sony was really doing things that, like, I thought were like, oh my God, like, this is bad. Like, for example, when I first reacted to the Days Gone 2 getting rejected, I was unaware that apparently, if this is all to be believed, Sony also greenlit a new IP for them to make. I didn't know that. I thought that they just rejected Days Gone 2 and told them to go help support basically be a support team, which they did for a time, but they took it back. I thought that's all they did. I didn't realize this. So I was jumping to conclusions like, Sony, what the hell are you doing? It's like, oh, okay, all right. I'm, again, too reactionary. The Caped Crusader is saying, it seems that Sony doesn't want to risk having another 70 Metacritic score game like Days Gone. I think it's a bad decision to not listen to their customers who liked it and listen to the critics instead. I actually wholeheartedly agree with that. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit once we go over the Days Gone section. That is worth noting here, though. Apparently, Sony was not happy with the critical reception of Days Gone, and that seems to be playing a big impact on why we're not getting it, because apparently it was a profitable game. Again, this is the one thing where I'm like, Sony, now you're really starting to make me wonder, what are you doing here? Come on. At the rate we're going, guys, I'm like not going to finish this article. Shinke, you're saying some of the people upset that Sony is not willing to fund smaller games from their first-party studios are the same people who never bought Gravity Rush, a PS Vita, or Dreams. Exactly. That is an important point to highlight. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that all of these moves impact me greatly as a gamer. I'm not going to put on the act. I'm trying to hear how it's impacting and affecting other PlayStation fans, but I didn't buy these games. I didn't buy a Vita. I didn't play Gravity Rush. Nothing against any of that stuff, but I didn't do it. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I did and then advocate for it. Why would I do that? But I'm trying to understand why some people are so upset about it. You know what I mean? I'm trying to see both sides of the coin. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. All right, guys, I'm really losing track of these super chats. Give me a second. If my computer would stop freezing up, I really need to upgrade my PC, man. So David Gaines, you're saying, what's good, man? Crazy news rumor today, but don't matter. I want to see games, and I'm sure we will. Yeah, I'm sure we will too, man. I appreciate that. We have Carlos, you're saying, can you stop acting like Sony fanboys don't exist? They are just as bad, if not worse, because they sent death threats to Naughty Dog. Okay, first of all, it's not just PlayStation fanboys doing that. I think it's a little unfair to label PlayStation fans or even the most hardcore radical fans and claim that they're the ones making some type of death threats. We don't know who's doing this. We do know that they need to immediately stop and never do it again. But I am acknowledging the hardcore PlayStation fanboys. I literally said that. Some people are coming to me and they're being like, dude, who cares about Days Gone? Sony's perfect. They're fine. Days Gone sucks. And I'm just like, I disagree wholeheartedly. Like, to me, you're just being too fanboyish. Like, Days Gone was a solid game. And if you played it, you know it. If you know, you know. And I'm not completely ignoring that aspect. Frederick, you're saying this seems a little off. So if Days Gone 2 is not greenlit, what is Bend working on? That just doesn't seem logical to me. Even Schreier can get it wrong sometimes. Of course, again, I have to reiterate, we don't know if this is all true. It just seems like he would not put this stuff out if he wasn't confident it was coming from a very good source. But apparently, Sony Bend is working on a new IP, a brand new franchise. Sony is giving them that opportunity, which I find extremely interesting. Severin, you're saying, I have all the systems, so I have no dog in this race, but I would say the fanboys confuse me. Are you here to play games or have bragging rights? Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, when you're a fan of something, you always want to cheer it on, and when it seems like your team, I guess you could say, that you support the most, um, is doing really good, you want to celebrate that. Alunchus returns. Once again, you're saying Ryan needs to address PlayStation's weaknesses. Just relying on AAA games assumes that Microsoft's 23 studios are all going to fail. That's a risky bet. I mean, it's hard to say. It's hard to say. I will admit that a void could end up being created indirectly by Sony focusing so hard on just AAA games. The question is, how much will people care about that void and the need for it to potentially be filled? That's where the market is going to speak the loudest. And here's a better question: if that void does end up being created in the long run, are people going to care? Are they going? How much will they really care? Are they just going to say, well, Sony isn't making these smaller AA games, I'll just go to Xbox for that. And when I want the big, massive AAA, I mean, like, premium steakhouse type games, I'm going to go to Sony. That's been working pretty well for them so far. So, man, you guys are just blowing it up here. Not that I'm complaining. Thank you again for the support. You guys are amazing. James, you're saying Sony is HBO making big hit like Game of Thrones and Sopranos, and Xbox is like Netflix making McDonald's. A bit of a weird comparison. I mean, Netflix, McDonald's, HBO, Sopranos, Game of Thrones, but I do understand what you're trying to convey. So let's continue on with this article here. So it says, this fixation on teams that churn out hits is creating unrest across Sony's portfolio of game studios. Oregon-based Sony Bend, best known for the 2019 open-world action game Days Gone, tried unsuccessfully to pitch a sequel that year, according to people familiar with the proposal. Although the first game had been profitable, its development had been lengthy and critical reception was mixed, so Days Gone 2 wasn't seen as a viable option. See, this is a problem in my opinion. This right here, this single paragraph we just read, if there's any like serious negative takeaway, it's this, because it does go to show that some of the higher ups at Sony maybe are a little bit more dense than we want to believe. Because I understand that, okay, Days Gone 2 was in development for a long time, but so was Ghost of Tsushima. The only difference is Ghost of Tsushima had a better critical reception. They both sold incredibly well. They were both profitable. Why would you not? If they're pitching you a Days Gone 2, why would you not greenlight that? Because you're afraid you're going to get a 70 potentially? I hate to break it to Sony, but a big reason why you got that 70 was because, unfortunately, reviewers of Days Gone got like a severely unpatched version of the game where a lot of things were broken, and it did have some issues at launch. That's stuff that can be fixed and prevented the next time around. But the game itself, anybody who plays it, I'm telling you, again, if you know, you know. I get that not everybody loves it. It's a solid game with a great foundation with a ton of potential, and it was profitable. It was profitable. Sony, why on God's green earth would you not greenlight a sequel? I mean, don't get me wrong. If it's true that they said, here, make a new IP instead, I'm all for that, but it's just so weird. Why would you have them completely restart from the ground up when there's already a solid foundation that they spent years building? It conflicts with one another. That's what I'm trying to say. So it's worth noting that the two studio heads, I forget their names. Maybe you guys in the chat can let me know. I might not be able to read it though, but they left. They left back in December of 2020, and it was abrupt. And I was like, this isn't good. This isn't good. So we have Severin. You're saying, final question for people like you in particular, why only invest and play on one platform? Why not try to branch out and see what's on the others? Well, for me personally, I can't speak for others, but for me, I still have an Xbox, and I interact with it sometimes. It's just I haven't felt the desire to go play on it in quite some time. And I'm fully planning on getting a Series X. Make no mistake about that. I'm just waiting for Microsoft to release the games that I'm really highly interested in, like State of Decay 3, Forza 5, Hellblade 2, stuff like that. And it's coming. So it's not that I'm actively going out of my way to avoid it and be like, I don't want anything to do with it. It's just, it's not my main place to play. But I do plan to interact with some of the games that they do plan to release. Tenzaroku, you're saying, hear me out. What if Sony is putting up fake news to keep these Xbox guys, to make them spread misinformation? Classic smoke and mirror tactics. I would say maybe it's slightly possible if it wasn't just constant. Like if there was just like one or two things here and there, it's like, maybe this is some trickery going on. But that doesn't really happen, especially when you look at how business oriented and focused Sony is these days, they wouldn't do something like that. But it's an interesting theory. Ace, you're saying Sony has a lot of indies and AA games coming out, but I guess people want to forget that. Remember how everyone shat on PS5 Indie Showcase last year? Perfect point, dude. Perfect point. I said this. I was like, guys, the last state of play we had, yeah, it was focusing on smaller games and not many AAAs, but Sony has to shine some light on them. I remember people were complaining with the 2020 the first Future of Games show. People were like, oh, they showed too many indies. And I'm like, guys, like, come on. Like, they need to show their support for the indies, and people do like these games. And so it's like, be careful what you wish for sometimes. I have a feeling that some of these people, maybe even a lot of them, they're the same people that are like, oh, I don't care about indies, but then they're also going to basically freak out and scream like, Sony, what are you doing? I mean, you know, I'll admit I'm guilty of doing that sometimes, but it's like, I really got to think, like, Sony has actually been supporting indies. They may not want to produce them. Like somebody said on Twitter to me, they're like, oh, I prefer the AA games model, right? Like I prefer getting more games more often. And I said, actually, I don't prefer that at all. The way I see it is when it comes to third party, we get more than enough large, medium, and small sized games. So at that point, what I want to see from Sony is just focus. I would like to see you just focus on the bigger games because I can get my fill of indie games elsewhere. I can get my fill of medium-sized games elsewhere. I think that Sony should try maybe still try to put a little bit of emphasis on making some of these games, but I can't fault them for that, you know? If I had to choose between the two is what I'm trying to say. Sir Speaks a Lot. This messed up thing is, why would they insert a cliffhanger with the intelligent mutant scientist if they weren't going to follow up? I hate that stuff. Dude, don't even get me started, Sir Speaks a Lot. I feel your pain. I look back at the Order 1886 and I'm like, oh, the sequel could have been amazing. It's set up for an amazing sequel, but they did. A Shorty Fayer saying, and Sony is still supporting smaller games, taking risks. Kenna, Sifu, Pathless, Risk, Returnal, and they're supporting it heavily. I know. Look, people are going to see that as damage control, but those are facts. Those are facts, people. Kenna, Sifu, Returnal. Okay, like I mean, Returnal I think it qualifies as AAA, but it's not. People act like Sony literally gave a big middle finger to indie developers and games. They're not. They're just saying we don't want to personally make, like, personally as if it's a person. We don't want to make those games. That's what Sony's saying. Sony says we don't want to make small games. I'm not upset at them for that. I'm upset at them. Like, I'm just concerned. Like, the only thing that concerns me is Sony becoming more risk adverse? Like, they're less willing to take risks, because the fact that they apparently didn't greenlight Days Gone 2 and said no to it, that concerns me a little bit. That's not something they should be saying no to. But then again, what cancels that out? Make a new IP. If anything, that's more risky. That's more risky. It's so weird, man. It's so weird. Anyway, guys, we have over 800 people here hanging out with me. Thank you guys so much. Please hit that like button to help the stream out and help support it. We have over 250 likes. Let's see if we can get to 300, maybe even 400. We can definitely do 400 likes. Helps the streams out way more than you know. Let me see here. I don't want to miss any super chats. Echoes93 is saying, I hope this Last of Us remake doesn't affect, I think you meant to say Naughty Dog's new IP. Yeah, I don't know. Apparently, it's not. We have to finish reading this article. Sir Speaks a Lot, you're saying. I already actually got that one. Let me see. So, Sage Infinite NJ, you're saying, I think it's pretty sad that out of all those studios, Microsoft couldn't develop a baseball game to compete. The MLB should have forced their hand instead of making Sony go cross-platform. I think the big problem there is that if Microsoft tried to develop their own first-party baseball game, they wouldn't have the MLB license potentially. But I do get what you're saying. You're basically saying the MLB should have not pulled the license from Sony, but basically spread it out. Like, I don't know. I don't know if that could work. Basically, like, oh, Xbox, make your own MLB, and then Sony make your own MLB using a license. That would, I don't know. I feel like that'd be spreading it too thin. Mr. Hamster saying, what's up, MBG? What's up, Mr. Hamster? It's been a while. Devakin, you're saying the go big or bust culture is too risky. Maybe. It's definitely, it is inherently risky if you think about it. A Shorty Faye, and Sony is still supporting smaller games. I already read that, actually. See, I'm getting all mixed up with these super chats. I do apologize, guys. Let's keep reading here, though, because this is taking way too long. So instead, one team at the studio was assigned to help Naughty Dog with a multiplayer game, while a second group was assigned to work on a new Uncharted game with the supervision from Naughty Dog. Some staff, including top leads, were unhappy with the arrangement and left. Ben's developers feared they might be absorbed into Naughty Dog, and the studio's leadership asked to be taken off of the Uncharted project. They got their wish last month and are now working on a new game of their own that will be part of a brand new franchise. So, yeah, that paragraph is also pretty loaded as well. Sorry, guys. I feel bad if I miss any super chats. I can go back at the end, but I feel bad because it's like, I know you guys want me to read them. Severin, you're saying, and if Sony does have their own event this year after skipping E3, I can only assume they don't have much going on after that point. I hope not. I think it's more of like a momentum thing. Like once Sony starts talking, I think they're going to talk throughout the majority of the year just to continue to build the momentum. That's my assumption. And then we have James. You're saying, can we trade Jim Ryan for Phil Spencer? Dude, again, just to talk about that for a second, I'm going to go over this new paragraph we just read. I don't want to trade Jim Ryan for Phil Spencer because you know what? At that point, what happens? What happens? Suddenly, we get our own PlayStation Game Pass, which apparently Sony's working on something that will be a counterpunch to Game Pass. We'll talk about that in a separate video. But I don't know, man. Like, I know Jim Ryan, he's very business oriented, but I don't know, man. Like, the thing that Jim Ryan gets right is he understands that PlayStation fans want bigger AAA games. Again, I'm not against Sony wanting to do this. You guys are saying my stream is lagging. Hold on, it should fix itself. I'm waiting for it to fix itself. Chat, let me know. Oh, here we go. Tell me my stream's just going to crash now. Can you hear me okay? Is my voice lagging or is it just the video? Because I have a lot more I want to say. I'm going to be looking to the chat now. Still lagging. Just the video. Your voice is fine. Just the video. Okay. If I just don't move then and just talk, it's almost like you can't tell. Normally when it lags like this, it fixes itself pretty quickly. All right. I'm just going to keep it going then. I'm sure it'll sort itself out. If it doesn't, then whatever. It's going to bother me, though. All right, anyway, so apparently Sony Bend, after Sony rejected Days Gone 2, they said, you're going to go work with Naughty Dog as a support team to work on another Uncharted game. So at this point, I don't know what's going on. Like, I don't know if this confirms that Naughty Dog is working on another Uncharted game, or if that was canceled, or if it was just Bend. It's not really fully clear here, but it seems like Sony wants to continue Uncharted. Again, not surprising, especially if Sony wants to double down on the games that work best for them. You guys are saying the video is good now. Okay, yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I get these lag spikes. Even though I have a wired fiber optic connection, I still get these lag spikes. It's ridiculous. But, they were put apparently as a support team, and that sucks. Okay, like straight up, the idea that Sony Bend went from making Days Gone to now you're gonna go support, or you're gonna be a support team to Naughty Dog. That straight up sucks and is extremely disappointing. So I'm glad that didn't stick around. But apparently it did cause two of their some of their staff to leave, including the two individuals most responsible for Days Gone, which is so unfortunate. And it makes me wonder, like, did this even have to happen? Did any of this have to happen? So Speaks a lot. You're saying, imagine wasting resources on a remake of a remaster. When we have Siphon Filter, Dino Crisis, SOCOM, or even Alien Syndrome, just begging for remakes. Yeah, again, I'm not 100% opposed to a Last of Us remake, but believe me when I say that is not a game that should be in line. It should be at the back of the line when it comes to games that should be remade, frankly. Siley are saying we have 5 Uncharted games, including a spin-off, but no Days Gone 2. Yeah, and when you look at it that way, it makes you realize maybe this is how Sony has always operated, where it's like we got to double and triple down, on our big franchises. I complained about Microsoft doing this with Halo, Gears, and Infinite. Now, I don't think it'll ever get that bad for Sony, but what's interesting is it said, so Naughty Dog, apparently this multiplayer game that's referenced in this article, so that Bend Studio was assigned to help Naughty Dog with a multiplayer game, that has to be The Last of Us Online. It has to be. I don't know what other multiplayer game they could be working on. And then it says a new Uncharted game. Now, what's interesting to me is it says to work on a new Uncharted game with the supervision of Naughty Dog. That tells me that it was Sony Bend alone that was making this Uncharted game, not Naughty Dog. Naughty Dog was just basically overseeing it and supervising it, but had no involvement with the direct development, which tells me that, since if this article is true, if this report is true, Bend Studio has since been taken off of these projects, both the multiplayer and this Uncharted, and they're making their own new game now. This tells me that either Naughty Dog is now making a new Uncharted or it just got canceled for whatever reason. Red, you're saying Days Gone poll, perhaps? Let's see who wants a sequel to this game. Yeah, I that's a good idea, actually. Maybe that's the next poll I'll put out on my channel. I'll ask, do you want a Days Gone 2? Did you want a Days Gone 2? I feel like a lot of people do, but who knows? Maybe the results will surprise me. So I have to, once again, I'm gonna reread this part because this is the part that everyone is overlooking. That in the end, this is almost good news. This is pretty much good news. Like, it's bad news that Days Gone 2 isn't happening, but it says Sony Bend got their wish last month. So in March, and are now working on a new game of their own that will be part of a brand new franchise. I mean, basically what we're seeing here is we are trading in Days Gone 2 for a new IP. So I have to tell you guys, this idea that Sony is becoming risk adverse, if this is true, that's out the window, because this is literally more risky than if Sony did Days Gone 2. This is more risky than if Sony did Days Gone 2. So that conversation about Sony being risk, adverse, that's out the window. The logic behind this is baffling. I'm not sure why Sony would say no to Days Gone 2, again, something that has a foundation, to then say you're going to be a support team, to then have Sony Bend complain to Sony, we don't want to be a support team, we want to make our own game, for Sony to then be like, okay, make your own game, just make something new. I like it, I don't like it, it's weird, it's like, this is great news, like, in the end, it's great, because Sony Bend remains intact as their own independent AAA studio, and that's the thing. If Sony doesn't want to make small games anymore, then you already know this new project that Bend is working on is going to be big, and that's great. Basically, what we're looking at is a new AAA IP that will be coming from Bend at some point over the course of this generation. It's just not going to be Days Gone 2. It's a new IP. So, it's like, I would have loved to have seen Days Gone 2. I can't be that mad, is what I'm trying to say. I can't be that upset. Because we may never see Days Gone 2, but who knows what this new IP from Bend is going to be. Maybe it'll be amazing. And again, this is what people are not paying attention to, man. Like, everybody's like, oh, Sony's, they're falling apart. Like, they're practically closing down Sony Bend. I mean, don't get me wrong. If they didn't turn this around, if we found out that right now they weren't making a new game, but instead they actually were a support team to Naughty Dog, that would be horrible. That'd be horrible. That would be terrible. That's the last thing I would want to see. The Vakin89, you're saying it was expected that PlayStation wouldn't be able to keep up with Xbox volume and pace. Sony is going to go big on summer, then go silent again for months. I mean, it depends. I don't think Sony's going to have event after event after event, but I think I think they're going to kick it off. Like, it's going to be the kickoff for a new game, like a new, when you kick off a new football game. and the excitement is at its highest, and then it coasts a little bit, like you're still interested in the game, you're still looking for the big plays, but the peak excitement is at that kickoff, and then it'll probably come around again as we get closer to the launch of those games. That's my expectation anyway. I mean, there is a chance Sony could go completely silent after their big event, but I think that would be a big mistake. A big mistake. It really depends on how big their event is. If their event is big enough and loud enough, basically it'll just ripple and echo throughout the remainder of the year and carry us in the next year, potentially, with a bunch of new games releasing. All right, so let's continue this article. So emphasizing big hits can also be counterproductive because sometimes games that start small can turn into massive successes. In 2020, Sony didn't put much marketing muscle behind the quirky video game creation system Dreams by the PlayStation-owned Media Molecule in the UK. As a result, PlayStation may have missed out on its own version of Roblox, a similar video game tool. Parent company Roblox went public earlier this year and is now valued at $45 billion, which is crazy. For their first solo project, Mumbauer and his crew wanted to pitch something that would be well received by their bosses at Sony, recognizing the risks and expense involved with developing a new game from scratch. They decided to focus on remaking older games for the new PlayStation 5. Remakes are considered a safe bet since it's cheaper to update and polish an old game than it is to start from scratch, and they can be sold both to nostalgic old fans and curious new ones. The team originally planned on a remake of its first Uncharted game released by Naughty Dog in 2007. That idea quickly fizzled because it would be expensive and require too much added design work. Instead, the team settled on a remake of Naughty Dog's Last of Us that came out in 2013. And so really quick, just have to say this before continuing. Sony, what if this is true? What are you doing, man? Why are you not buying Bluepoint Games, the remake experts, but instead trying to get one of your other studios that clearly want to make their own game to try? I don't know. Maybe they wanted to. It sounds like they kind of wanted to remake it, but why would you not? If you're going to do a remake of any sort, why not Bluepoint? Maybe it's because Bluepoint's already tackling something, their own big project, you would assume, but buy Bluepoint, Sony. That's the damn point. Buy Bluepoint. If you care about remakes this much, you need to secure Bluepoint Games. It is extremely unwise, in my opinion, to keep them a free agent. I don't care how good your relationship with them is. Just like you bought Insomniac because you never know what could happen. You need to do the same with Bluepoint. That's just my opinion. Bluepoint needs to be part of Sony. At the time, Naughty Dog was in the thick of development on the sequel, The Last of Us Part 2, which would introduce higher fidelity graphics and new gameplay features. If Mumbauer's crew remade the first game to have a similar look and feel, the two games could be packaged together for PlayStation 5. In theory, this would be a less expensive proposition than remaking Uncharted, since The Last of Us was more modern and wouldn't require too many gameplay overhauls. Then, once Mumbauer's group had established itself, it could go on to remake the first Uncharted game and other titles down the road. That's so weird to me. Like, why would you do that? Why would you do, like, what is up with this fixation on remakes? I mean, I get they're a safe bet, but I don't know. I mean, let's be real. An Uncharted 1 full-blown from the ground up remake sounds a hell of a lot better, in my opinion, than a Last of Us remake, just because of the distance between the two when they released. But do we really need a remake of either? Honestly speaking, do we need a remake of Uncharted 1 or The Last of Us, or are there other games that would deserve that treatment? Kendall Fire saying the crazy thing is Bluepoint are the ones that made the Uncharted collection remaster in the first place. I mean, I know it's a remaster, it's different from a remake, but it's really strange to me. This is the part that's really confusing. Like, maybe in the end it's good that this isn't happening, because it's like, I don't know. So it goes on to say, but pivoting from doing finishing work for the other games to making your own is difficult, since original development teams are competing against hundreds of other teams all over the world with varying levels of experiences and success. This is what the founder of Iron Galaxy Studios is saying, which served as a support team and development studio. The people funding the work are often risk adverse, and if they have to pick between a team that's done it before and someone trying to do it on their own for the first time, I can see why some people pick the prior developer over the latter. Let's move along here. That's just what Sony did. Mumbauer's project, codenamed T1X, was approved on a probationary basis, but Sony kept the team's existence a secret and refused to give them a budget to hire more people, leading many to wonder if the company was really committed to letting the team build a new studio. Still, the smaller team kept working, and by the spring of 2019, they had completed a section of game designed to showcase how the rest would look and feel. So let me... NC, you're saying, MBG, have you seen Sean Layden's liked tweets? He's liking posts, praising and asking him to come back. Hopefully he does. Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen, guys. I love Sean Layden as well, but I don't think Sony's going to let him back. Like, let's be clear here. I know that Sean Layden hasn't said anything. I don't think he can say anything. He would get in a lot of trouble. Sean Layden was kicked out of Sony. He did not willingly leave Sony, okay? Sean Layden, there was a power struggle between Sean Layden and Jim Ryan, in my opinion, very clearly, and Jim Ryan won. And we're still waiting to see if that's ultimately a good thing or not. Sean Layden went on record back, I think, in like 2014 or 15 when he was on stage presenting Sony. And, to you, that you can see this as a good or a bad thing, but he literally was talking about a game that I never heard of, but he said this game didn't sell millions of copies. It wasn't a multi-million seller, but that's not the point. It was a game that we're happy to have on PlayStation. And you could just tell that that's a different mindset than what you see Sony have currently. So once again, guys, we have over 900 people watching. Please hit that like button to help this stream out. I would really appreciate that. Hit that like button for me. Let's continue on. At the time, Sony was going through a management shuffle and the new boss wasn't impressed. Here we go. Herman Hulst, the former head of Guerrilla Games, was named head of PlayStation's Worldwide Studios in November 2019. He thought the remake project was too expensive, according to people familiar with the matter, and asked why the planned budget for T1X was so much higher than remakes Sony had made in the past. The reason was that this one was a brand new graphical engine for the PlayStation 5. Mumbauer needed to hire more people to help rework the graphics on new technology as well as redesign gameplay mechanics. Holst wasn't convinced, the people said. So we're seeing already some of the things that are happening now that Herman Holst is, at the helm of PlayStation's first-party studios. Just when it hoped to enter production on the remake of The Last of Us, Mumbauer's team got called in to help when another big game fell behind. Release of The Last of Us Part 2 had been pushed to 2020 from 2019, and Naughty Dog needed the Visual Arts Service Group to polish it off. Most of Mumbauer's team, along with some of the 200 or so other staff at the Visual Arts Service Group, was assigned to support Naughty Dog slowing down progress on its own game. Then the roles got reversed. Sony sent word that after the completion of The Last of Us Part 2, some people from Naughty Dog would help out with T1X. Mumbauer's team saw this as their short-lived autonomy being stripped. Dozens of Naughty Dog staff were joining the project, and some had actually worked on the original Last of Us, giving them more weight in decisions or discussions about T1X's direction. The game was moved under Naughty Dog's budget, which Sony gave more leeway than the Visual Arts Service Group. I mean, I can't fault them for that, Soon it was apparent that Naughty Dog was in charge, and the dynamics returned to what they had been for the last decade and a half. The Visual Arts Support Group aiding another team of developers rather than leading. So this is interesting because this is a whole section of the article that I didn't read yet. I'm reading it for the first time now. It sounds like what was happening was this Visual Arts studio, this San Diego team that obviously does a lot of great work for Sony. The leadership there, basically, they were like, we want to be our own studio. We can do it. We don't need Naughty Dog. We don't want to constantly be a support team. We want to be our own studio. And I actually admire that. But it just seems that in the end, it worked out so that Sony saw that they shouldn't be their own studio. I mean, I'm not going to lie. The idea of a newly developed... I mean, I want you to picture this for a second. Let's just pretend this actually did happen. Let's say that this new studio, this secret Sony San Diego studio that we thought was working on a new Uncharted this whole time, could you imagine if this studio was announced and then it's like, we're making a Last of Us 1 remake? I mean, am I the only one that would be like, what? Like, Sony, you made a new studio and you're making them remake The Last of Us 1? I mean, at least Microsoft is letting the initiative reboot an old franchise, right? I mean, that would be disappointing in my opinion. So I mean, James, you're saying Jim Ryan is a potato. Okay. Thank you for the input. Cook X, you're saying, was Sean Layden that guy who presented the return of Crash Bandicoot at E3? Cool dude. Yeah, that was him. Yeah, Sean Layden was a cool dude. You could tell he's a cool dude that really is just passionate about video games. And I've always appreciated that about Sean Layden. It would be great to have him back at PlayStation, but I don't make the decisions. I don't run the business. Sir Speaks a lot. You're saying it's pretty much the time I went to an authentic Chinese restaurant asking for fried rice and they kept repeating fish eyes. Like, no, I want my rice. Dude, I'm not going to lie, man. I don't know what you're talking about. Sir Speaks a lot. You're going off the rails, man, making me read some weird stuff here. So let's continue here because, again, I told you this was a very long article. Actually, this is the end of it. To Sony, the move made sense. Naughty Dog is one of the key studios for Sony's ability to sell PlayStations, said Bloomberg intelligence analyst Matthew Canterman. Sony's competitive advantage has always been exclusive content over Microsoft, and more new games as well as remakes of classic titles from such a storied team can help sustain demand for PS5. But those who had wanted independence were disappointed. By the end of 2020, most of T1X's team's top staff had left, including Mumbauer and the game's director, David Hall. So today, the T1X project remains in development at Naughty Dog with assistance from Sony's visual arts support group. The future of the remainder of Mumbauer's team, which has come to be jokingly referred to as Naughty Dog South, remains unclear. So there we go. We have the full picture here if this is to be believed. And there's so much nuance to the story that it sounds exactly like something that would happen behind the scenes. I mean, sure, this could be made up, but my God, there is a ton of detail here that you would have to really go out of your way to fantasize about and make up and put this out. So basically, there's a few key takeaways here. Here are the key takeaways. You ready? First, Days Gone 2 was rejected, and that sucks. That doesn't mean it will never happen. It just means that it's not currently in development. Things were looking grim there briefly for Ben's studio, where they were basically going to be moved as a support team to Naughty Dog, which would have sucked. But Sony very recently said, you know what? Never mind. We're going to give you guys another chance. And so now Sony Bend is working on a brand new IP, which we will assume is a AAA IP and is massive in size and scope because that's what Sony wants. We just don't know what it is. We know that it's not Days Gone 2. So it's a double-edged sword, as I said, good and bad. I would have loved to see Days Gone 2, but let's see what this new IP is going to be. We also need to acknowledge the fact that apparently work on a new Uncharted did begin at this studio. And this is where things get a little bit confusing. And this is where things get weird. We thought Sony Secret San Diego studio was working on a new Uncharted. No, it was Ben's studio that was working on a new Uncharted. And they were being supervised by Naughty Dog. And then so, they say, we don't want to do this. And Sony says, okay, you don't have to do this anymore. We also need to acknowledge, so I'm assuming there's no new Uncharted currently in development, unless maybe this, I don't know, like if they're going to make Naughty Dog do a new Uncharted or whatever, but apparently as of right now, there was a new Uncharted in development by Sony Bend, no longer the case. Another key takeaway, this Last of Us remake is apparently still in development, except this time it's being developed by Naughty Dog. So I'm telling you, this is what's going to happen. Mark my words, this is what's going to happen. And I'm saying it like it's a bad thing. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. You're going to see Naughty Dog announce the Last of Us 1 remake packaged in with the Last of Us 2 PS5 remaster with The Last of Us Online. That's what you're going to see. And it's going to be sold at $70. And that's why. That's how they're going to justify that $70 price tag on PS5. It is, here's a remake of, The Last of Us 1. Full remake from the ground up, which it sounds like it certainly could have potential to be really good. But you'll also get the online component as well. And you'll get the visual upgrade and, all that stuff for The Last of Us 2. So overall, it doesn't sound that bad. Like, I mean, you could argue it's a waste of resources, but an overall all-in-one package like that, I can see why Sony would want to do something like that. And for me personally, I'd be most excited about The Last of Us Online. Solid Snake, you're saying, give me Days Gone 2. I'm not with Sony on this one. Well, hold out hope, Solid Snake. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, dude, Days Gone 2 needs to happen at some point. But let's hold out some hope. Let's see what Sony Bend can do with a new IP. I mean, Days Gone was a new IP, and it was amazing. So it's like, I mean, I want to see it continue, but if you can do something on that level or even better with another new IP, then I'm all for it. The Caped Crusader is saying, how Sony is acting reminds me of how Warner Bros. Is acting with their DC franchise. Sony doesn't realize they're sitting on gold and are becoming lazy. I mean, yeah, it is concerning that Sony, it seems Sony is really risk adverse when it comes to new teams or unproven teams. That's what it seems like. That, I mean, at least to some extent. I mean, we can't say that like definitively, but like I read this article and I'm like, we're looking at a team that basically was fighting for their independence. Like, we want to be our own studio. We don't want Naughty Dog's help. We don't want this. We don't want, and Sony's like, no. You do want Naughty Dog's help. We want Naughty Dog to help you because we're concerned you can't do it on your own. And you know what I mean? It's like, it got to a point where Sony's like, look, I don't know, man. The whole Sony San Diego visual arts thing, they're not a studio now, apparently. They were attempting to become their own studio. It didn't work out. It is what it is. These things happen behind the scenes all the time. My only concern is, now that Naughty Dog is working on The Last of Us Remake, is this taking away resources from them potentially working on a new IP? I hope not, because if it is, please cancel The Last of Us Remake and focus on your new IP. Put those resources towards that new IP. That's what needs to happen. Again, this is another reason why Sony is focused on growing their internal teams they already have established over acquiring new studios, because to them, it feels like a safer bet. James, you're saying, fine. If not Phil Spencer, let's trade Jim Businessman Ryan for Reggie. Reggie knows exclusives, and he's a free agent. Could you imagine Reggie joining PlayStation? I couldn't. I mean, that would just be bizarre. You know, I feel like if that were to ever happen, people would just assume and believe that PlayStation's now going to make Nintendo games. That's what would happen. We know that. I mean, that's what would happen. Look, I've been talking for a long time here. This is turning out to be how long has this live stream been going? I know I should be able to see this, but I'm going to ask you guys in the chat to let me know, because I don't have it in front of me. Hold on. Let me check. Never mind. Don't let me know. I already know. It's been an hour and 8 minutes. I thought I couldn't see it. All in all, guys, first of all, I'm going to have to delete some stuff from Twitter because I clearly reacted without reading, and that's always a mistake. Reading through the entirety of this, I believe it. There is a lot of interesting stuff here, but I want to ask you guys in the chat. I mean, I know that this is a small sample group here that I'm asking to let me know, but do you see this as bad news per se? Because for me, I kind of don't. I mean, I think there's two negatives here, and that is, well, I don't know if I can call The Last of Us Remake a negative, because I think there's a lot of people who would actually be excited for that. A potential negative is The Last of Us Remake and No Days Gone 2. But the positive is Sony is apparently giving Ben the opportunity to make their own new IP, and they're still going in big with, like, they're all about big games and AAA games. Sir Speaks All, you're saying, I bought Ritz crackers that were supposed to be salted, but they weren't. It's like Sony secretly made all the Ritz crackers with a Google recipe. Oh, dude, Sir Speaks a lot. Come on, man. Like, your metaphors are just, I don't even know, man. I appreciate the super chats, though. Bad news. Stop with the remake. Sony really not looking good these days. Horrible news. It's not good, but it's not the end of the world. It's bad. Not really. Sorta. Yes, it's bad. Sony going downhill. All right. I don't. Guys, is it that bad? I don't know. Like, it's not ideal, but is it that bad? All right. Let me ask you this then. What would Sony have to show you guys, for those who are saying this is bad, and anybody who's listening to this after the fact, please in the comments let me know, because I'm genuinely curious. For those who really think this is like bad news, what would Sony have to do, I guess you could say, with their big summer event, like, to make you kind of feel better? Like, okay, never mind, things are going fine. Because for me, I mean, it's pretty simple. I'm just curious to see what you guys have to say. Keegan, again, he's saying, if Sony's all about big games, maybe this means we'll get multiple God of Wars. We will. We're going to get more than just one God of War sequel. Let me see what you guys are saying here. We need new games at the start of the new gen, not remakes. Yeah, I can agree with that. Although, I don't know, I played Demon Souls Remake, and that was like one of my favorite games. So I can't say I'm completely against it. Give sequels and new IPs. Yeah, I agree with that. I would like to see a healthy mix of both. Solid Snake, you're saying The Last of Us remake will be great, but small fish in the grand scheme of things. We want new stuff. I love Sony, but they need to step up with the games. Well, you know, to be fair, guys, I mean, again, this is where I feel like people are... I mean, I feel like people are like they're... What's the best way to frame this? People are ignoring what's right in front of them. You know what I mean? I feel like we're seeing a situation where it's like if the media tells us that Sony bad, Sony messing up, Sony real bad, and all the Xbox content creators and Xbox fanboys say, "Oh yeah, Sony real bad, Sony downhill, Sony done, PlayStation done," right? And maybe even some PlayStation fans are like, I don't know about some of these decisions Sony's making. We're ignoring what's right in front of us, though, and this is what bothers me. Where it's like, we're getting Returnal. You know what I mean? Like we're getting Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. We're getting Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo later this year. We're getting Horizon Forbidden West. You know, we're getting a new IP that Sony obviously money had it for. That being what's it called? Forspoken. I name's weird, but I mean, and on top of that, like we're gonna see more games announced this summer. So it's like I just don't. I get it. Like I get that because Sony is being so quiet, it's making it extremely easy for people to assume the worst. But I don't know, man. You're saying excuses. I don't. I guess I'm making excuses. I mean, when I buy Returnal and play it, I'm just being honest. I'm not going to be sitting there thinking Sony's really going downhill right now, man. As I'm sitting here playing Returnal, don't know what's going on. When I go buy Ratchet and Clank, when I see gameplay of God of War and Horizon Forbidden West, dude, I'm sorry. Like you're going to have to convince me there's something wrong here. That's what I'm trying to say. And I'm not convinced. I know that people think that I'm just blindly defending Sony. I'm really not trying to. I like, again, this is not perfect. This is not completely ideal. And Sony has been very quiet, but I'm just not at that point where it's like, Sony, what the F you doing, man? Like, I don't know. I'm just not at that point yet. I'm really not. That's just me being honest, you know? People should know. People forget. Like, do you guys remember how I was towards Xbox? I was an Xbox fan, and they got me to a point where I'm like, no more. They got me to that point, and I defended them, even when I thought, okay, maybe things aren't getting that bad yet. But then they got that bad, and that's when I'm like, nope, no more. Sony's not at that point. In fact, they're far from it. I'm just being completely honest. Sir Speaks Out, you're saying everyone here is just not understanding, so I'll explain it. Oh, here we go. In banana terms, you want green banana? Sony say no. Yellow banana for you. Okay, Sir Speaks Out. That one's pretty good. I like that one. Sony says yellow banana for you. No green banana, yellow banana. According to Sir Speaks a Lot, that's what Sony says. Star Screams, you're saying The Last of Us came out 9 years ago, then remastered on PS4, and now again for PS5. Ben should be able to make Days Gone 2 and a new IP if they wanted to grow the studio. Yeah, that I can get behind. Let's not do The Last of Us remake. Let's grow Ben's studio. Let's let them do a Days Gone 2 and a new IP. That might be spreading them too thin, though, because, I mean, Bend is a big studio, but maybe that's where Sony should grow them. Let them spread their wings even more. Solid Snake, you're saying no, incorrect. I don't pay attention to the media. Third-party deals are great, but I want to see more first-party games. I might sound really greedy, but this is new hardware, so it's fair to ask for more games. Sony has a huge library. I mean, dude, I'm not going to sit here and fault you. Like, I'm not going to go against that. I'm not going to say I don't want new games. I'm just saying that we have to be a little bit more fair here, where we have to understand, like, I mean, look, if you look at Sony's launch lineup and you say that, you know, Demon Souls is a remake, so you don't count that as a new game. You say Spider-Man Miles Morales is, an expansion, essentially, standalone expansion. So it's not technically a new game. I can understand that. I mean, it depends on what you mean by new game, man, because to me, Returnal, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, and Horizon Forbidden West, assuming all three of those games launches here, those are 3 new games. And they're going to be a little bit spread out, but I mean, I feel like when you look at what Sony has delivered up until this point, I don't know, man. Like, let's be real right now. What Sony has delivered game-wise up to this point compared to Microsoft, can we really sit here and say Sony hasn't delivered the games? Honestly, is that fair? Because I feel like that's unfair. I feel like that's honestly objectively not true. And I'm not trying to make it a comparison between PlayStation and Xbox, because maybe you were just saying as a PlayStation fan, you want more games. And I get that. I want them too. But I'm just not convinced that this is a sign that Sony's going to make less games. If you want to tell me, I don't want The Last of Us remake, that sounds stupid. I can see that argument. Yeah, like maybe that is stupid. Like, do we really need that? No, we don't need that at all. Let's take the resources that are going into that and make a new game. But, at the same time, I'm not going to sit here and assume that because we're getting a Last of Us remake, we're not going to also get new games. See what I'm saying? David Gaines, you're saying you truly don't see the big deal. New IP from Bend. Most is good news, honestly. People got to sit back and chill. There, LOL, there is some negative, but mostly positive. Well, I mean, that's the problem with all this, and I'm guilty of it myself, where it's like, I mean, I sit here and I read what people say, and I see the responses, and frankly, I'm going to be real right now. I spend too much of my damn time. I waste too much of my time, and this is not a slight towards you guys, because I love interacting with the chat, but I spend too much time listening to what other people have to say and entertaining it for too long. When in my reality is I wake up, I live my life, and when I play video games, I turn on my PS5, and I sit here and I say, Demon's Souls was great. Spider-Man Miles Morales was great. I loved Astrobot. Destruction All-Stars, gave it a shot. Didn't really do it for me. Sony's killing it with PlayStation Plus, so I've been enjoying some of those games. I'm looking forward to Returnal. Sucks that Deathloop got delayed, but I get to look forward to Ratchet and Clank not too long after that. And that's how my mind works. It is. Like, I want Sony to talk more. I want Sony to reveal more. But at the same time, like, I can't sit here and pretend that because they're being quiet, I'm enjoying my games less and the games that they have coming. I can't say that, because that would be a legitimate lie. If Sony didn't have Returnal coming up, and if I thought Returnal looked bad, and I'm like, oh, this doesn't look good at all, I would be thinking differently right now. If Ratchet and Clank didn't look promising or wasn't coming out, relatively soon, and there was basically nothing on the horizon, I would be having a much different conversation. So that's just, I don't know. That's just where I stand right now. Josh, you're saying PS5 is moving units. If it works for the company, stick to it. Apparently, PlayStation fans just want new toys, but new isn't always better. Everything isn't. Yeah, you're saying everything is what have you done for me lately? Yeah, and I'm trying not to be like that, because don't get me wrong, like, I'm not invested in Sony. Like, I don't have stock in Sony, like, I just want to see them deliver the games. And, again, I can get behind the notion of, well, we want more games. Well, of course we do. If I could get a new AAA game from Sony every single month, or even every 2 months, that's the highest quality, of course I'd want that. But it's unrealistic to expect that. And, Solid Snake, you're saying, I'll say it, I kind of don't want The Last of Us remake. We'll definitely play it on PS5. Give me gameplay of Horizon Forbidden West and Ragnarok. A new IP from Ben, perfect. Just let me know what's on the horizon, pun intended. You know what, dude? And I understand your frustration, man. Like, if I found out tomorrow that The Last of Us remake got canceled, I'm not shedding a tear. I kind of don't care. If I find out it's going to be coming out later this year, okay, or even early next year, fine. I'm indifferent to it, but mostly, I do feel that it is mostly unnecessary, but I'm not entirely opposed to it, because I love The Last of Us 1. It's one of my favorite games of all time. And frankly, I'm going to be real right now. I miss playing as Joel, like We all know how I felt about The Last of Us 2. I'm not going into that. One of my things is that I would have loved to have seen Joel a little bit more involved in The Last of Us 2. But I really enjoyed the moments where he was, and it was awesome seeing him again. But to see a remastered, not a remastered, a complete remake of The Last of Us 1 and kind of play as Joel once again, that would be kind of nice. You know, it would be kind of nice. But, holy wow. You're saying Inside Gaming's poll said, would you buy a remake of the original Last of Us? With 4,000 responses, 78% saying no. And dude, that's the thing, man. Like, I don't know if that's a good business decision. I mean, maybe Sony is making a huge mistake right now by letting Naughty Dog do that. Here's the question. I will ask, I'm going to put out my own poll. Thank you for that, Fortat. What if it's not just The Last of Us remake? It's a Last of Us remake, The Last of Us 2 remastered, and The Last of Us Online packaged together. How much does that change people's opinion on would you buy this? Would you buy this package? I feel like a lot of people at that point would be like, okay, I'll buy it, you know, because you're getting a lot in that one package. And that's what I'm telling you. Like, if Sony is planning on selling The Last of Us remake by itself, I could see that flopping and flopping hard, unless it's like $20 or something, or $30. I could see that flopping really hard. But if it's a package deal, I think that will change the dynamic of how people view it, the perception. I really do. Sir Speaks a Lot saying, sorry, I'm Sir Speaks a Lot. I destroy future topics with different ones. Tell us what you feel about The Last of Us 2. Don't be shy. Come on, MBG, never fear. I would if I didn't already have countless pieces of content on the channel where you can discover for yourself exactly how I feel about The Last of Us 2. You know, I think The Last of Us 2, I think what I will say is go watch my content on it. There's plenty of it to be consumed. I want to say this, though, real quick. One thing that still bothers me about my opinion on The Last of Us 2 and the way people take it is a lot of people believe that I jumped on some kind of hate bandwagon, and that really bothers me that people actually believe that. Like, no, I didn't. Like, if you go back and watch my content covering The Last of Us 2 and how excited I was for that game, like, I was one of the few people on YouTube, like, really excited for this game. I even made a video talking about my theories of what could happen with the characters in the story, and I never make videos like that, and it was for The Last of Us 2 because that's how excited I was. I didn't hop on some hate bandwagon. I had my own personal problems with the game, and I voiced that and I expressed that, you know, and it bothers me that people just throw you in the corner. It's like, no, you're just a hater. You're just a hater. Like, no, there's a lot I actually loved about The Last of Us 2, but you won't take a second to hear that out because you just assume I just jumped on some hate bandwagon. The Genie Wizard is saying there's other PS games that should be remade first. Totally agree, dude. Totally agree. Let's get a remake of The Order 1886. That's a joke, of course. That's a joke. But yeah, this is pretty much my reaction, guys. I don't know that I have much more to say. We will talk more about this, obviously, during Press X podcast. You guys like really showed up in force today, which was great. I genuinely appreciate all of the support you guys show the channel. I have one last request before you guys go. Please do me a big favor right now. We have 750 people here. Click that like button. Exit out of the chat and click the like button. That really helps streams more than you know. Like, YouTube looks at that. The algorithm looks at it. If we could get 500 likes, that would be great. If we could get beyond 500 likes, that'd be even better. And for those who are watching after the fact, please hit that like button. It helps more than you know. I don't like begging for likes. I'm not trying to do that, but I'm just trying to express to you it's the easiest way for you to help support the content if you want to see more of it. But that's pretty much going to do it, guys. That's pretty much everything I have to say here. So I hope you did enjoy this live reaction. You guys seem to definitely enjoy, you know, me doing these specifically live reactions sometimes. And, you know, we can continue to do more of it here. So do me a favor, come back to the stream when you're done, if you don't mind, and leave a comment. Just leave a comment saying anything. That also helps support the channel. But you guys are awesome. I couldn't do what I do here on the channel if it wasn't for you. So really appreciate you taking time out of your day on this, what is it, Friday? On this Friday, just randomly come and hang out with me and chat. So yeah, leave your thoughts and opinions in a comment down below once the stream ends. And until next time, guys, take care.